Imagine this. 5 sisters, a beloved brother, and a new girlfriend. Sounds wholesome, right? Like a Hallmark movie in the making. Except it wasn't. Not even close. What if I told you that my sisters, the very women who raised me after our parents passed, orchestrated a series of elaborate, manipulative, and downright cruel tests for my girlfriend, believing they were protecting me? And what if I told you that those tests, born of misguided love, didn't just expose her true colors, but irrevocably shattered my family? Was I wrong for cutting them all off after what they did, even though they claimed it was all for my own good? Tell me, honestly, would you have done the same thing if your family had tried to sabotage your relationship in the most twisted ways imaginable? Imagine the person you trust most in the world systematically gaslighting the person you love most, all while smiling to your face and telling you they just want you to be happy. Let me take you back to where it all began. Our family dynamic has always been intense, a tightly knit circle that felt more like a fortress than a home. Losing our parents in a car accident when I was just 10 years old left a gaping hole, and my 5 older sisters, ranging from 12 to 22 at the time, stepped up to fill it. They became my surrogate mothers, my protectors, my everything. There was Sarah, the eldest, pragmatic and fiercely protective, the one who handled the bills and the discipline. Then Emily, the free spirit who seemed relaxed but was surprisingly traditional when it came to family legacy. Jessica, the quiet observer who missed nothing, the one who could read a room better than anyone I knew. Michelle, the charming manipulator, always knowing how to get her way with a pout or a perfectly timed compliment. And finally, Chloe, the youngest of the sisters, just 2 years older than me, who had always been my closest confidant, the one I shared every secret with. They sacrificed their teenage years and early 20s to ensure I had a stable upbringing. And for that, I'll always be grateful. But their love, while profound, came with an equally profound sense of ownership and control, especially when it came to my romantic life. Every girl I ever brought home was subjected to intense scrutiny. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me or my new girlfriend Maya for the gauntlet they laid out. I met Maya at a charity event for local youth programs. She was vivacious, witty, and had a laugh that could light up a room. We clicked instantly over our shared love for old jazz and bad puns. She wasn't just beautiful. She was genuinely kind, ambitious, and seemed to understand me in a way no one else ever had. She saw me not as the orphan baby brother my sisters saw, but as a man with his own dreams. After a few months of dating, I knew she was special, and I was falling hard. My sisters, however, had a different agenda. Their protective instincts kicked into overdrive the moment they heard I was serious about someone. They'd always been wary of my girlfriends, convinced that no one was good enough for their baby brother. But with Maya, it was different. Maybe it was because she was strong-willed, or maybe because she didn't immediately bow down to their authority. They didn't just question her, they plotted. I remember the first time I brought Maya home for dinner. It was supposed to be a casual introduction, but the air in the room was thick with a tension I couldn't quite place. Sarah grilled her about her career aspirations, asking if she planned on being a provider, or if she was looking for a safety net. Emily subtly probed into her family background, making comments about how unstable families often produce unstable partners. Jessica watched her every move, from how she held her fork to how she looked at me, with an unnerving intensity. Michelle made pointed comments about Maya's outfit, suggesting it was a bit much for a family dinner. And Chloe, my usually sweet Chloe, kept asking seemingly innocent questions about Maya's past relationships that, in hindsight, were designed to trip her up and make her look like she had something to hide. Maya, bless her heart, handled it with grace and charm, completely unaware she was walking into a spider's web. She even told me later, "Your sisters are a lot, but I can tell they love you very much." If only she knew that their love was a cage they were trying to lock her out of. The first test, as I later found out through a shared group chat they accidentally left open on the family iPad months later, was the financial stability test. Sarah, being the most financially astute and the one who managed our parents' inheritance, spearheaded this one. She arranged a casual coffee meeting with Maya, supposedly to get to know her better without me there to distract them. During this meeting, Sarah subtly steered the conversation towards finances. She didn't just ask about her job, She pushed. She asked about Maya's credit score, her student loans, and her long-term investment strategies. Then Sarah went so far as to casually mention a fictional investment opportunity she was supposedly involved in, a high-risk, high-reward tech startup. Hoping Maya would either show greed by asking to jump in or show financial irresponsibility by suggesting they just wing it. Maya, being completely transparent and not at all materialistic, talked openly about her modest but stable job as a graphic designer. She spoke about her passion projects and her dreams of saving enough to open her own small studio one day, emphasizing that she didn't believe in shortcuts to wealth. She didn't bite at the investment bait, saying she preferred to invest in herself and her skills rather than things she didn't understand. You'd think that would be a win, right? Wrong. My sisters interpreted her honesty as a sign of her being too financially naive or not ambitious enough to keep up with our family's comfortable lifestyle. They even wrote in their notes that she was likely looking for a husband to fund her little art hobby. It was infuriating to read. Next came Emily's family values test. Emily, always the traditionalist who believed a woman's worth was largely tied to her domestic skills, invited Maya over for a baking day while I was at work. She knew full well Maya wasn't particularly skilled in the kitchen. Maya had told them she preferred cooking savory meals to the precision of baking. Emily had intentionally chosen an incredibly intricate, multi-step French pastry recipe, and then conveniently forgot to buy eggs and sugar, pretending she was out. She watched as Maya tried to navigate a kitchen she wasn't familiar with. Using ingredients Emily suggested that she knew would ruin the dough. The kitchen was a disaster zone. Flour everywhere, burnt trays, and a fallen souffle. Maya, clearly uncomfortable and out of her element, tried her best to laugh it off, even making a joke about how they should just order pizza. Emily, however, saw this as definitive proof that Maya wasn't homemaker material and wouldn't be able to nurture a future family. She even made a snide comment while Maya was cleaning up saying, "I guess some women just aren't cut out for domestic bliss. It takes a certain level of discipline." Maya just smiled and said she was always willing to learn, completely oblivious to the fact that Emily had taken pictures of the messy kitchen and sent them to the other sisters with a caption lamenting Maya's lack of basic life skills and lack of effort. Jessica, the quiet one, preferred more subtle psychological warfare. Her loyalty test was something out of a psychological thriller. She created a fake social media profile for a former classmate of mine, a strikingly attractive woman named Lila, who started sending me seemingly innocent but slightly flirtatious messages. Jessica knew I usually left my phone on the counter when I showered. She timed the messages so Maya would see the notifications popping up. This Lila would also interact with my Instagram posts, making comments like, "Remember that night in the library?" Or "It was so great catching up with you the other day, let's do it again." The idea was to see if Maya would spiral into jealousy, start snooping through my phone, or confront me in a hysterical rage. Maya, of course, saw these comments. She even asked me about them one evening while we were cooking. But she didn't do it with an accusatory tone. She simply asked, "Who's Lila from your old school? She seems very eager to catch up." When I honestly explained I hadn't seen a Lila from my old school in years and didn't even recognize the name, she simply shrugged and said, "Oh, maybe she has the wrong person then. Or maybe she's just one of those bot accounts." Her trust in me was unwavering. She didn't check my DMs, she didn't call the number. Instead of reassuring my sisters, this made them even more suspicious. They concluded she was too cunning to show her true feelings and was likely playing the long game by pretending to be the cool, trusting girlfriend. Then came Michelle, the queen of manipulation. Her character test was arguably the cruelest because it involved an innocent animal. Michelle, knowing Maya had a soft spot for animals and had actually volunteered at a shelter, lost her own beloved cat, Whiskers. She called Maya in a middle-of-the-day panic, sobbing hysterically, claiming she had left the door open and Whiskers had bolted toward the busy main road. Maya, without a second thought, dropped a major client meeting, drove 20 miles to Michelle's house, and spent 6 hours searching the neighborhood in the pouring rain. She was putting up missing posters, calling local shelters, and crawling through bushes. She was distraught, consoling a fake crying Michelle, and offering her all the support in the world. Meanwhile, Whiskers was safely tucked away in Michelle's friend's apartment across town, being pampered with premium treats. After a full day of Maya frantically searching and getting soaked to the bone, Michelle miraculously found Whiskers, claiming he had just been hiding in the attic the whole time. She then casually observed Maya's reaction. Maya was so relieved she actually cried and hugged Michelle, saying she was just happy the cat was safe. My sister's takeaway? They concluded that Maya was too emotional and easily manipulated, arguing that she lacked the stoicism needed to be part of a high-achieving family. They didn't see a hero, they saw a mark. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. My sisters, emboldened by their findings, were convinced Maya was either a gold digger, a lazy homemaker, a naive pushover, or a manipulative genius hiding her true intentions behind a mask of kindness. They actually sat me down one Sunday and presented me with a literal dossier of their evidence, complete with the kitchen photos, the social media screenshots, and notes on her financial instability. They genuinely believed they were saving me from a terrible mistake, acting as the council of elders deciding the fate of my heart. They told me they were doing this because they loved me more than anyone else ever could. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have confronted your family right then and there? Or would you have felt a seed of doubt, wondering if 5 people you've known your whole life could actually be right? The final, most egregious test was orchestrated by Chloe, my confidant, the sister I thought was my best friend. Her integrity test was designed to push Maya to her absolute breaking point, to see if she would finally snap and reveal the monster they were sure lived inside her. Chloe invited Maya for a weekend getaway at a remote cabin we owned, claiming it was a girls' trip, to finally welcome her into the fold. Unbeknownst to Maya, my other 4 sisters were also there, lurking in the background or arriving unexpectedly, observing everything like scientists watching a lab rat. They had meticulously set up scenarios to provoke her for 48 straight hours. They constantly criticized her clothes, her opinions on books, her dietary choices, even accidentally spilling a glass of red wine on the vintage dress she had worn specifically because she knew my sisters liked classy attire. They tried to bait her into badmouthing me, asking questions like, "Don't you find his obsession with work annoying? Or he can be so immature, don't you think?" They were looking for any sign of negativity, any crack in the armor. For an entire day and a half, Maya endured their passive-aggressive jabs and thinly veiled insults, maintaining her composure with an astonishing, almost saint-like grace. She laughed off the wine spill, politely deflected the criticisms, and consistently spoke about how much she admired my drive and my heart. She even tried to help Sarah with the cooking, and offered to do the dishes every single night to show her appreciation. But then the climax happened. During the final dinner, the masks didn't just slip, they were ripped off. Sarah, emboldened by several glasses of wine and frustrated that Maya hadn't broken yet, started a direct, vicious attack. She began questioning Maya's love for me in front of everyone, suggesting she was only after my family connections and the potential inheritance our parents had left us. She even brought up fabricated stories of past girlfriends who had supposedly taken advantage of my kind nature, implying Maya was just the latest in a long line of predators. It was a brutal, unprovoked assault on her character. Maya's eyes welled up, her hands were shaking under the table, but she still tried to maintain her dignity. She calmly stated that she loved me for who I was, not for what I had, and that she didn't appreciate the insinuations. That wasn't enough for them. Michelle then chimed in, calling her a liar and a fraud, saying they had proof she wasn't who she claimed to be. And then Chloe, the one Maya trusted most in that room, delivered the final devastating blow. She laughed, a cold, hollow sound, and accidentally let slip that this entire weekend, and every random encounter over the last few months, had been a series of tests. She confessed, with a smirk of feigned remorse, that they had been playing a game to see if she was good enough to be part of our elite circle. The silence that followed was deafening. I can only imagine the sound of Maya's heart breaking in that moment. Her face, usually so bright and open, literally crumpled. The realization of their cruel deception, that every moment of bonding had been an interrogation, hit her like a physical blow. She didn't yell, she didn't scream, She didn't even cry at first. She just stood up, her eyes looking empty, like the light had been snuffed out. She looked at each of my sisters one by one, and said in a voice that was barely a whisper, but carried more weight than any shout, "You know, I genuinely tried to like you all. I tried to understand your protectiveness as a result of your trauma. I thought we were becoming a family. But this is just sick. You didn't test me, you tormented me. You spent months trying to find a monster in me, only to prove that the only monsters in this room are the 5 of you. I pity you because you'll never know what real love looks like if you think it has to be earned through psychological warfare." She then walked out of the cabin into the dark, leaving my sisters sitting there in a stunned, self-righteous silence. I arrived at the cabin about 2 hours later, having received a frantic, cryptic text from Maya that simply said, "I'm leaving. I can't do this. Please don't follow me right now." When I walked through the door, the atmosphere was like a funeral. My sisters were strangely subdued, a mix of "we told you so" triumph and a flickering unease on their faces. It was Chloe who, through real tears of regret that had finally started to fall, confessed the whole thing. She laid out the tests, the fake social media profiles, the lost cat, the ruined baking, the dossiers, and the final, devastating confrontation at dinner. As she spoke, my blood ran cold. I felt a physical sickness rising in my throat. The women I had loved and trusted, the women who were my entire world, had systematically psychologically abused the woman I was planning to propose to. They hadn't just checked her, they had tried to break her spirit. They had treated her like an enemy combatant rather than my partner. I immediately called Maya, my hands shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. She picked up on the 4th ring, her voice sounding like it was coming from 1,000 miles away. She told me she was safe at a friend's house, but her words were like ice. She told me she couldn't forgive me for allowing my family to be so integrated into our lives that they felt they had the right to do this. She said she couldn't be with someone whose family was so fundamentally toxic, and that every time she looked at me, she would see the faces of the women who had just spent 48 hours tearing her down. She told me she needed indefinite space and hung up. My heart didn't just break, it felt like it was being ground into the dirt. I turned back to my sisters, and the argument that followed was the most explosive our family had ever seen in 20 years. I yelled until my voice was raw. I cried with a rage I didn't know I possessed. I accused them of being manipulative, narcissistic monsters who were so afraid of losing their control over me that they were willing to destroy my happiness to keep it. They, in turn, tried to gaslight me one last time. Sarah stood up and screamed that they had done it for me, that Maya had failed the test of loyalty by leaving so easily. They truly believed they were the heroes, the brave sisters who had exposed a weak link. But I saw through it all. I saw the damage they had done to my reputation, to my relationship, and to the memory of our parents, who would have been disgusted by their behavior. I told them that their love wasn't a gift, it was a debt I was done paying. I told them they had crossed an unforgivable line, and that they were no longer my sisters. They were just the people who had raised me and then decided to ruin me. In the end, I packed my bags, walked out of that cabin, and drove away. I haven't spoken a single word to any of them in 6 months. No Thanksgiving, no birthdays, no Christmas. It's been the loneliest 6 months of my life, but also the clearest. Maya and I are slowly, painfully trying to rebuild. It's not a fairy tale. The trust is fragile. She has nightmares about that weekend, and she still struggles to be around my extended family. We're in couples therapy, and I'm in individual therapy to unlearn the toxic loyalty my sisters drilled into me. As for my sisters, they've reached out incessantly. Emails, letters, flowers, messages claiming they only wanted the best, and that they miss their brother. Michelle even tried to use the cat again, saying Whiskers was depressed without me. I haven't responded to a single one. Their tests didn't expose Maya's flaws. They exposed the rot at the core of our family dynamic. They exposed a possessive, territorial love that preferred to see me alone and miserable rather than happy with someone they couldn't control. This whole mess has taught me a devastating lesson about boundaries. Sometimes, the people who claim to love you the most are the ones most threatened by your growth. Their intentions might have been rooted in the trauma of losing our parents and needing to protect the last piece of their family, but that doesn't excuse the cruelty of their actions. I had to choose between a lifetime of being managed by 5 overbearing sisters, or a chance at a real, independent life with the woman I love. It was a choice that cost me my family, but it saved my soul. I stand by my decision to walk away. I believe I did the right thing, even if the silence in my life is sometimes deafening. So, like this video if you think I was right to walk away. Subscribe for more stories about family drama and the hard truths of relationships, and share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Did I overreact by cutting them off completely? Or is family not an excuse for abuse? Let me know what you would have done if your siblings put your partner through a gauntlet like this. I'll see you all in the next story.